Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Escaping Success podcast. I'm the solo host today, Tom Leffler, and today we're going to talk about the difference between being effective and efficient. So, as some of you may know, I am an entrepreneur. I run a pool management business, and I also run a jerky business. I don't know if you call that running yet because we have no official sales in the jerky business, and this is year 2. Welcome to running a business. But that also goes to my next point, being effective versus efficient. Something that I grew up in my household. My dad started the pool business as got to keep moving, keep doing more work, go, go, go. And he was very efficient at getting work done, which at getting the daily tasks done, I guess you could say was effective. But as a business as a whole, he wasn't effective. He was efficient in getting as much done as humanly possible in a day, but he wasn't efficient and effective with his time, if that makes sense. So what I learned through my experience working in the pool business, for example, is that, having an endless list of things to do and keep going and working and how can I possibly get as much work done as possible in this time frame is not necessarily the best thing to move the business forward, if that makes sense. I'm a big Tim Ferriss guy, and he talks a lot about this. He was recently on a podcast, and he spoke about how, from an outside perspective, someone would take his day to day. He really doesn't do much, but what he does do, he's super effective, if that makes sense. So his decisions, the work he does is super effective. So the 80-20 principle, 20% of the work could bring 80% of the results, if that makes sense. So I didn't really understand that until I really took an outside view on the business and really looked at the whole picture. And I'm fortunate enough with my pool management business that I do have kind of 3 or 4 months where things slow down to almost a complete standstill. And I have the opportunity to reevaluate and assess what worked, what didn't work, what new initiatives and plans I could implement. And in this time, I really try to be effective versus during the season when I'm in the shit, like I'm in the heat of things, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible because I have so much things I have to do. But the goal is, I think, to be effective and efficient. Something I'm working on and continually working on is when I'm in the chaos of the season, am I doing things that are effective or am I just doing it to be efficient in the moment? And that's something that I think is not oftentimes brought up enough about entrepreneurs, especially solo entrepreneurs starting a business. In the beginning, we have so much that has to get done that we're just trying to be as efficient as possible. But as the business grows, as sales grow, that can actually lead to a negative in the business. Because if you're just trying to be as efficient as possible, get as much done as possible, you're not making decisions or doing things that are effective in the sense that, okay, for example, you may have, a to-do list of 20 tasks to get done in a day. And if you're as efficient as possible, you're going to try to get all those 20 tasks as done as quickly, as efficiently as possible versus if you take the extra, 10, 15 minutes, you look at that list of 20 things, okay, what of this list of 20 things would present with me with 80% of the results? And it's so hard to do in the moment. It sounds easy. It's when you wake up at 6 a.m. and you have 20 things to do, I'm just going to take, leisurely take 10, 15 minutes to go through my list and be like, okay, this is not that important. It's the last thing you want to do and the last thing I want to do in the moment. And I still struggle with that. I'm a hypocrite because I say it and I still don't do it when I'm in the heat of things. But if you really could consciously be like, hey, this extra 10, 15 minutes will save me hours today or save me, weeks, months, years down the line in the business. It really could. And I saw this firsthand with, hiring effective people. Not just either just doing it myself or just trying to be efficient or just efficient hires, but really I saw firsthand with an effective person or an effective system, it really makes a totally difference versus if I just hired somebody that was, efficient or could get the, not think for themselves or just get the task I show them and they can just only do what I show them and they're efficient at that, but they're not effective in the role, if that makes sense. And again, as a leader of a company, as an owner in another company, it does make a difference to not only be efficient and effective. And 80-20 Principle, great book, highly recommend it, and it can be applied to every part of life. The crazy thing is when you become so effective at only focusing on 20% of things and getting 80% of the results, it does free you up to have a lot more time in a business. And that's where you could kind of switch to your creative brain, if that makes sense. Because, I was fortunate enough, walked into a business, Left Foot Pools. It was very established. My dad put in 30 plus years of blood, sweat, tears into this business. And I was fortunate enough to step in. And it was an established business, but we were super efficient at providing results, doing it, but we weren't necessarily effective at building teams, having good systems, things more streamlined. It was still just a race to see how much work my dad could handle in the season. That's basically what it came down to. And then when I came in, it was just basically how much work can I handle in the season. And then I realized okay, somebody's got to give, because I don't have not the wherewithal, but I didn't have the fortitude to be like my dad and do that without having a mental breakdown. I've never met a man, testament to my father, one of the hardest working people I know in my life. But working hard is necessary, but it's also could be a fallacy. Working hard, doing the wrong things, or working hard, just doing the same thing but not progressing, can actually not set you back, but someone who might not work as hard but works effectively and efficiently at the things that are going to move the needle could be 10 times, 100 times ahead of you, and you necessarily could work double, triple, quadruple, 10 times the hours. So that little trick could really save you, or saved me, a lot of time. Because, for example, I came into the business, there was a payroll system, okay? The payroll system basically was, we had time sheets, last name, first name, last name, first name. At the time, we had 350 employees, and each manager, we had, say, 20 managers, they would submit their employees. And so every Wednesday or Thursday night, my mom and dad, again, they were only ones really in the business handling this, they would sit across from each other, and my mom would read my dad to list the names. Okay, Sam Smith, go to S's, Sam Smith. Okay, 10 hours, boom. Okay, we have Morgan Stanley. Okay, Morgan Stanley, boom, 5 hours. And then the next manager would come in, okay, Alex Smith, okay, 6 hours. And they would do that. And that process alone took them approximately about, 3 to 4 hours, okay? At least 3 to 4 hours, probably more. It's also and they would print it off, because again, they weren't tech savvy. They would print it off. By the time they printed it and get the managers in there, that was just that. And then the next day we'd go to a scanning place and scan it over, and then they processed the payroll, and then we didn't put it in checks because they're worried that the timesheets, and we would envelope it, and then we'd go to each pool and drop it off. Basically, the whole payroll process, we do weekly payroll, took one person or two people, no exaggeration, approximately 30 to 35 hours of actual work each week. Okay. Meanwhile, there's a whole other business going on, but just the payroll took, 1 to 2 people, 30 to 35 hours of actual work. Okay. So I came on, I saw this, and I just, it is what it is. There's got to be a better way. And so I looked at different payroll companies. In that, I streamlined versus I made an Excel sheet, and then I would just put the names in. Then that advanced to the following, summer. I got a new payroll company, and then they would manually, the managers would put in sheets, and I would upload them, check them, upload them, and then the system would process it, get enveloped, all that. And then that involved to now my employees punch it in and out on their cell phones. I check it, and it goes like this. Most people get direct deposits, and people mail their checks. Basically went from a 30, 35 hourly a week process to now, depending on the time of year, it is a 2 to 4 hour process, sometimes less. In the beginning, it's more because we're hiring people and there's issues with that. But realistically, this past summer, when I was in probably end of July, August, when things are really rolling, it really was only an hour and a half, 2 hours. Versus only 3.5, 4 years ago. Well, now, wow, I'm getting old. 4 or 5 years, 5 years, crap. 5 years ago, it was a 30, 35 hour process versus now it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But even then, there's still issues, and I'm looking at a better clock in, clock out system. Just seeing like there's better ways to be more effective. So ideally, it's more so not a time saving thing; it's more of a margin of error thing. So it's be more effective. It's efficient and effective, but it could be even more effective in a sense. There's still like a 30% margin of error. So this is one example in changing the business. One system went from 30, 35 hours of the president, CEO of work a week down to 1 to 2 hours. And so now that frees up, my parents don't even do the payroll and they haven't in years, but it frees me up now. I have like 24 hours of, and I'm not talking like 24 hours, I'm talking like actual hours. Like I would sit there, Thursday from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and do it all day. Then Friday, same thing. It's like these are actual working hours, not like accounting for sleep that this would take one person to do. So that frees me up now to do so much more effective, check in on customers, check on my team. It just frees you up to do so many things versus if I just came in and just was trying to be as efficient with the current process and not effective, it would be the same boat. So that's the difference, is taking a step back. I know it's awful, it's in the moment, it's hard to do, but it's really could be worth in the long game. And that's something that I'm still working on, and I'm going to be always work on is, am I being just efficient or am I being efficient and effective? And that's always a good reminder to have, is like, okay, me doing this or me implementing the system, or me working right now, am I just being efficient or am I being effective in my business, in my job, whatever it may be. And this also could be the same thing for, diet, nutrition, all of these things. Am I just being efficient or am I being effective? It carries over to everything. Because my thought process, when I was like tracking calories and all that stuff, is like, okay, I'm efficient at tracking, but is it effective strategy for the long term? Like, do I realistically think I could, carry my scale with me everywhere, weigh, measure every food, if I eat something out, I gotta track that. Like, is that really being efficient and effective? Or if I just eat the same things that I like every day, know what they kind of are, and then that frees me up to be more time in a day, less like meal stress. So it ties into many different things. And that's something that I'm continuously working on is, am I just being efficient? Like, am I just staying busy just to be busy? Which I'm so guilty of, and I still am guilty of, because I feel it's like, like mental masturbation in the sense of like, oh, I'm like, I'm just filing, these cabinets all day, versus I could hire somebody to file this, or implement a system to file this, and I could really do the work of like either going out and selling or building a team or, launching a new creative project. It's hard. I like to do the things that we know and be efficient at that, but there's a cost to that. It's a cost of growth, there's a cost of profit, there's a cost of my future time, spending on doing this, so it would free me up to do other things. So basically, the big questions to ask: am I being efficient versus effective, or am I being both efficient and effective? That's ideally is I'm efficiently being effective in moving the needle and doing things right and progressing in the business, my life, whatever it is. Or am I just being efficient, doing the same things, but I'm not effectively moving anywhere? I'm just in that hamster wheel. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate it.